we need to be back here because we forgot.
Forgot what you said.
That's a big statement. We forgot. What did you forget? And so then you have to go through their good times, their conflicts, their steady times, and figure out, because the whole point is to work me out of a job and for their situation to be made better.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Kingdom Heirs, where faith meets business, inspiring the kingdom-minded entrepreneur. I'm your host, James Matalone, and today I've got James Pfeiffer back with us again. And today we're going to talk about why sitting down with a counselor will not help your family, your work, and your faith grow. James, welcome back to the show.
It is good to be back. I watched what we did before, and I thought, I really need to speak faster and be more animated and more alive.
Well, you're used to sitting down with an individual or a couple that are pretty much animated for you. I could imagine.
True.
Yeah, and
Very
so
true.
This is a different setting than your normal counselor's room. I could imagine.
It is very different, but it's fun to talk about.
It is. Because everybody needs counseling. Everybody needs counseling. That's why Jesus is known as, the Holy Spirit is known as the counselor.
The counselor.
Right? And so if Jesus says, the helper is coming and I want you to receive him because he will counsel you, that tells me we all need counsel. We all need the Holy Spirit, and we also need counsel. And so thinking about, I was just sitting here thinking, and you were talking, and about, why sitting down with a counselor. I would say why sitting down with a counselor would be helpful for my family. It would be helpful for the work that I do. It'd be helpful for my faith. And you said, yeah, but there's things where it may not be helpful. What do you mean by that?
So, we need fixing.
We do. Yeah, I agree.
That's what they say.
Well, I think we need fixing.
Fix my wife. Fix my husband.
I try not to say that. Yeah.
When we go into somebody else's place and we have an expectation that they're going to fix for us, it's not going to be a good show. We can go away and we can move to a point, and many people say, well, yes, that helped, but we're still doing the same thing.
Because if I come in and say, hey, fix my wife, and you're like, okay, let me put all my attention then on trying to fix your wife. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the corner saying, yeah, you're going to get it now. You're going to get fixed. And we're going to sort out your problems. Absolutely. Which I'm sure many men have sat there saying, oh, yeah, this is good. Now he's dealing with her. But meanwhile, isn't it we're only really able to help sort out our own self. It's hard to fix somebody else or sort somebody else's problems out.
And if you come in as a couple, you're not the designated person. They're not. It's your relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the designated thing.
Yeah.
And how you operate in that. There's so many different components, but the main thing are both of those people bring in their set of expectations and what has happened and how they responded and how they were trained, how they see things, their personality. So there's a vast amount of material out there in the self-help. And so some people, I have 50 books. And I've read every one.
Oh, wow.
And here I am still.
Self-proclaimed, not an expert. I've tried them all, and I just...
Trying to relearn or trying to overlearn. The brain is an incredible thing, and when you mix emotions with intellect, and then you mix the training, which is behind the scenes, which really is your iOS.
Mm-hmm. Operating system, yeah.
Yes. And you have to look at your operating system, and you have to look at the other person's operating system. So one of the things I say fairly regularly is it's the child in you and the child in you, and those two, that's where you meet emotionally, that's where you bond. It's the adult that works out the details of your everyday life. of your parenting. So you have to get those two working better together.
Okay.
It just is. And there are some people that separate out the adult, the child, and the parent. The adult is your executive, and so you need that one on board. Your emotions are all those things that have happened to you and what you have thought and figured out from them. But most people are protective. They're protective of themselves.
Got a
They're
guard.
protective of, they don't. I don't want to be hurt like that again. Yeah, so and so they did this, and I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of forgiveness, or if there is, it's human forgiveness, which only goes so far. So they hold on to it, as we all do. We want to hold on to the lessons of life so that we don't repeat things, so we don't get hurt again.
Which is good advice. I mean,
it is, except in my opinion, number one rule of life is life hurts. So, popular saying, pain trains. Okay?
I thought it was no pain, no gain.
That's another positive one, right? No pain, no gain. Get it on. True. But pain trains.
Pain teaches, pain trains. Okay.
Yes. And if we let pain train us, we will in the military, they take you in and they reduce you down as far as they can. And they are teaching you to ignore pain for the gain. And the gain is to be able to ignore that and do your mission anyway.
Yeah.
Do what you are there to do.
Yes.
So just in that, and it can be businesses do it, corporations do it. They send people, go and do this training and go do this workshop or this retreat. But it's about how do you do your job in spite of some things are going to be painful. Rarely do we do it when it comes to marriage or family.
Right.
We just don't do that very much.
So this is what I was thinking about. There was a show a few years ago where it was like a money management show, and they had on staff was a therapist, counselor on staff, and there's 100
one of those guys.
100 people, 100 people in the company or whatever, and they would say, hey, man, I'm just not closing the deals like I should be closing the deals, and say, hey, go get a session in there with the therapist. And they go in there and say, well, what exactly are you not doing well that you should have been doing? And they break down their life. Well, actually, all right, here's the problem. You got an issue at home. That's why you're underperforming at work.
Yeah.
Okay, let's sort that out. And they help. Thanks, doc. I feel so much more clear now. Okay, I'm gonna go out, and they start selling again. Like whatever it is. It's like very robotic, right? But it made me think during this. I'm like, man, it'd be good to sit and talk with someone more regularly, to have access to that, to kind of, because at times we are in a vacuum. Yeah. We think in a vacuum. We think our own thoughts, and then the other people at times we've allowed in, and those are the thoughts that just circle around, and we make our decisions at times emotionally. We want to make them logically and rationally and practically, but many times they're influenced by emotions. And so my thought was, man, it would be good for other people like myself. I mean, I've sat down and I've hey, this is what I'm going through. This is where I'm at, and what are your suggestions? And for me, that was very liberating. It was very liberating. It was very freeing.
Sounding board.
It was a sounding board. Many guys will do that with other business people, like business owners and executives. They'll sit down and they'll do a sounding board. Hey, how can I advance my career? What can I do? What can I do differently? A lot of guys will sit down with coaches for their kids. Hey, what do we got to do for my kid and help them advance and do well? A lot of guys will not sit down for their marriage. Or for themselves.
Because?
That's too personal. I got that area. That's a guarded area. I've got that. I've been married for 15 years. I'm married 10 years. I'm a good husband. In other words, I don't know the reason necessarily why, but I do know this, is that we've men compartmentalize their lives in such ways that there are certain areas, certain doors they don't want to open up. To vulnerability, right. To question. I'm going to go in there. He's going to say, I'm doing it wrong. I'm going to have to do it this way. Change. I don't want to change. But things are not flowing very well in the home. You have breakdowns. You've got communication gaps. You've got issues there that you know are real, but you just keep trying to, eventually it'll go away or it'll get better. But we all know that doesn't just happen.
But then I just go in the backyard, I open a can, fix the barbecue pit,
Yep.
fix the smoker, fix the grill.
Yeah, go do stuff. And I drink beer to kind of
let them do
what they do inside.
Yes.
Yeah, we just separate and we go do our own thing. Right?
If she would just listen. But it's not just that. It's, I don't have a place there. My place is to go work. My place is to go do this.
Right.
Or I just don't do emotions.
Right. And so I think there's that need, there's the need within men and women to allow themselves to get in touch with their emotions, and in a healthy way process through them past hurts. You said our emotional state is from our kid state, right? From the child state. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah. Where most of those things are not dealt with. We are told to stuff it. We're told to just deal with it. Life sucks. Life is not fair.
Those
right?
things do teach us, though.
They teach us, but they put up walls at the same time.
If I am 10 years old and I go through a very difficult period, and keep in mind that what is difficult to a 10-year-old is not the same as what's difficult to a 15, 20, 25,
yeah, of
30.
Course. Yeah, well said.
It's different. But as an adult, you will see it as, you will remember it as, you will experience it as that 10-year-old.
Yes.
You don't want to admit that, but it's true.
Always takes you back to the place you first experienced it.
It's your reference point.
Yeah.
And even if you're not really thinking of that and avoiding thinking of that, you're keeping the lesson that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I feel about it. And then that's how I think about it. So you were saying, so there's this part where there's emotions and then your thoughts come. So there's two different ways to think about it.
Yeah.
You think, then you feel, then you think.
Sure.
Well, actually, we're both. Mm-hmm. And how they interact is something that we don't pay much attention to.
Right.
We don't. The overriding when something's painful and just working through it, it's good if you're going to let new thoughts come in and new thought development, such as, well, talking with my wife is just excruciating because she doesn't listen well, and I can say it so clearly and she doesn't understand from the wife's perspective. Well, talking with my husband, it's just like talking to the wall. I say it and I say it and I say it, and typically I really will hear 2 or 3 times one thing said the same way again and again and again, and the wife is watching or just saying the story, and she is sure that husband did not get the point. That's why she had to say it 3 times, because she's tried and tried and
I've
tried.
been there. I totally have been there. Yeah.
And the man may be absorbing every single thing, but not allowing himself to engage much, or not allowing, because they have been in this relationship long enough where he knows, if I go into that, all these emotions are going to come up. And men are famous for aggravation and frustration coming up first. It's just irritating. It's just frustrating. I will go to the auto parts store. I will go to the hardware store. I will go and I will get the tools. I will get what I need, and just let me fix it. Just let me fix it.
If it was just that easy.
But it is.
Within relationships.
Or if she would just handle all the emotional stuff, and I'll just handle all this.
The fixing stuff.
Yes.
That'd be great teamwork.
Cuddle at night and not have to talk much. How was your day? It was good. We're good. We'll go on dates. We'll go to a movie. We don't have to talk. We love.
We demonstrate. Yeah.
We don't.
But talking, the breakdown happens with the lack of communication. I mean, that's where the breakdown of the relationship typically is it's at the communication level. I don't hear her. He surely doesn't hear me. She doesn't listen to me. He doesn't hear what I'm saying. To repeat myself. That's all communication.
It is communication, and there are lots of books that have been written on men and women saying things differently.
Sure.
So one of the things that I do is I make people define things. You have to define. Okay, well, this happened. Okay, well, we're going to define those. We're going to define some of those terms. We're going to define some of those situations. And then all of a sudden you start to see them come together and say, I didn't really understand that you were, or I kind of knew that you were thinking that way, but that's not the right way to think.
When would be a good time for, if someone's listening right now, as they're listening right now, and they're doing an analysis of their own, introspectively of their own relationship with their spouse, what are the what's a good indicator that they should seek some help, some counsel? And do they do it themselves first, or do they try to do a group session, like them and their spouse with a counselor? Because those are like murky waters for people. They don't really know how does that even work? So what's a short tell sign that you need to get some counsel in your marriage relationship?
Cold silence.
Okay.
It's a very popular term, shut down. So one person gets quiet and they don't say much and they just stop talking, they stop saying. Temper flares, obviously, are
indicators.
A very popular indicator that people see, but then they make reasons for, if I just didn't do this, then he or she wouldn't do that. Or if you would just do less of this, I would be less like that in transferring. So children, when your children, who tend to be the barometers in the house, when you see them percolating, they have trouble sleeping, they have trouble at school, they stay away, when you come in, everybody's quiet, or when the two of you are together, they start acting up just insanely or out of the ordinary. Because children's responsibility and job is to look at their parents and read what's going on with them, and they do it very well. And the reason they do it is because they are in school. They are learning from their parents how they're supposed to be and how life works. And that is their number one classroom, is home and parents. So you said, what are warning signs? Avoiding talking,
avoiding conversation,
but also going out and doing their own thing.
Cold silences, shutdowns, emotional shutdowns, temper flare-ups.
And coolness.
Yeah, lack of emotion.
Coolness, yeah.
So, somebody's sitting here saying, I can identify with a few of those right now. So what's the next step?
Yeah. I'm going to tell on myself. I just said this doesn't work, but I said it works to an extent. You go to the bookstore and you browse the books. You look up podcasts that this is about communication. And it's not the Bible. It's not inerrant. So you go and you read it or you watch it and you let it sink in. You let whatever's there resonate, and then you talk with your partner. I read this. And so that's the next step. The next step, get more information about your situation. But also, what I suggest very regularly, when things get murky, when things get tense, when they cool off and you're not sure what to do, you go to paper. You start to write to each other.
Yep.
And
that's good.
In that letter, in that writing, I have people get spiral notebooks, and I would love to see sales of spiral notebooks go crazy, because there really should be one in every home, where even homes that are doing well, because you just leave notes for the other person. Things are going well, things are getting rocky, I'm feeling tense, or those things that are hard to express, or those things that the person's not there and it pops into your mind, and you just jot a note and you leave it.
Yeah, I can think about how for business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, people who are like in high level management, the stress loads that they carry, and then they go home, and And they're like, but you don't understand. And your spouse doesn't understand. Your spouse doesn't have the time to figure that out as they might be managing all the other things in their own workload, family load at the house. There's so much clutter there.
And
it's hard to
talk about work.
And I don't talk, right. And so but then there's an issue when you don't talk about work.
Right.
Now there's an issue because you don't talk about it, and this stuff's happening, and you're making decisions without sharing and talking and communicating. This partner's now upset because you're making decisions without including them in the decision process. It becomes very, everything can break down very quickly.
Behind walls, things are built. And it's just a really important concept that when things cool or when the two people separate out a little bit, they establish a wall, and they're busy doing things and building things on the other side of that wall. And the other person doesn't know.
Are there any doors on that wall?
Yeah, you would.
Is there any way we can kind of peek in and say, oh, that's what you're doing?
Communication. But you said, what are warning signs?
Yeah.
Walls, and the other person is not aware and doesn't know what's really going on.
You know, most affairs that people have, it's because of these warning signs, these things that they're seeing, they're experiencing, the lack of communication, the lack of connectiveness, the lack of emotional support.
How do affairs,
they find it?
How do they happen?
They find it with those people, with other people. Oh, they avail themselves, they make themselves available. They talk to them. You know, so I've seen that over. Megan and I have been married now 23, going on 22 and a half years, and I've seen so many men, and I'm like, do you talk to your wife? No, we don't talk. Like, why do you talk to that lady then? As much as you don't talk to your wife as much as you talk to that lady.
It's unencumbered. There's not. It's a different.
Life is not in.
It's so simple.
It seems simple. Yeah, it seems very simple, but it's about to get very complicated for you very, very, very quickly. You're about to destroy everything because that ain't going to work out. But if we get ahead of ourselves, prevention is maintenance, and prevention is a great thing for every area of our life. If we can just maintain certain areas of our life, all areas of our life, there's maintenance added.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So
it can prevent breakdown.
Can you have an affair with your spouse?
Who have an affair? Can
one spouse have an affair with their spouse?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Right, because it sounds like it's an oxymoron.
Right.
The two absolutely shouldn't go together.
No.
But look at the components of an affair. And what if you took some of those components and you said, honey, dearie, pie, sweetie, honey bun, whatever, let's put these things back in our relationship.
Oh, well,
then what happens?
Well, now it looks attractive again.
But you don't call it an affair. What do you call it?
Relationship. My marriage. It's my relationship. It's my
revitalizing.
It's my love interest.
Yes. Re-energizing. But we forget. So when the affair thingness starts to creep in, it's just what you were saying. We're hungry for something, or we're wanting something and needing something, or we can be drawn in. Because affairs happen because there's a spider, or there's a predator, and those things happen. But also the affairs happen because the person is searching around to try and have something to get some excitement,
right?
To get something that they perceive they need that they're not going to their partner for.
Right.
So you just take some of those and say, let's talk about adding them back in. And again, it can be in the spiral notebook.
Yeah.
But if the other person is like, that's silly. We're married. We don't do that stuff anymore.
Oh, but that's why we're at the place we're at, because we have lost our first love with each other.
And how to love each other. But also,
that's powerful.
We haven't leveled up. The longer you're married, the more there's skirmishes and there's old scars and this and that.
Unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, all of that is there.
All of
without
that.
Forgiveness, without cleaning the slate, clean once a week, once a day, daily. And the Bible talks about clean it daily.
So should it make you more fond of the other person or not?
I would say forgiveness makes to
This
receive
is-
to
this is a
receive
trick
to
question.
receive
This is a trick
to forgive forgiveness to
Yes.
to give forgiveness
Yes.
or to receive it. If I
Yes.
was to give
Yes.
forgiveness, I'm basically saying what offense, how I was offended, and what took place. I remove the penalty that I want to bring. I remove the recourse.
Okay.
So, does it make me feel good about that? No, not necessarily, because my desire is, well, you wronged me, there should be punishment or somehow, some way, recompense, like recourse.
Okay.
Does that make
I don't-
sense? So what I
oh,
said.
it makes complete sense. You did a wonderful job.
So do I want to?
You
Does it
did
make
a-
me feel good? Not necessarily.
I did mention this as a trick
Yeah,
question.
I know
right?
you're trying to trick me. I'm gonna get in trouble. Go ahead.
I did. I did say that it's a trick question. So you just did a wonderful job all the way to the recompense. Wonderful job of describing human forgiveness.
You got it. Yep.
And that's exactly what we do. But my question was, does it make you feel closer or more fond of the person that you're forgiving? In your response, if I sum it all up, I think was no. I do not feel closer to them. And you even said why. Because I don't see how they're going to give me back enough to make it good and make me feel so.
But the
then-
reverse is true. When I'm forgiven, I have forgiven by that person. Oh, I have so much more affection and love by that. I'm like, oh, thank you so much for forgiving me.
But what do people say a lot of times? I can never make up for. I'm going to spend all this time. So that is human forgiveness, and
Right.
we are human.
Yes, we are.
But then there is a forgiveness that comes from God. And when we receive that for this other person, we actually feel closer and more love for them, more compassion for them, more love for them, more mercy and grace for them.
Because that's when we realize that they're not perfect. That's why we realize that they're flawed like us. That's when we realize that they did their best and they still came up short like us.
It is counterintuitive. That is when, just what you were saying, and there's one more thing that I've come to know, and that is when we realize that out of our hurt, out of that healing, and forgiveness is where it starts, out of that comes a flow of love that we had not experienced yet, but it's also towards that person that did it. And so we actually feel closer and better towards our spouse.
Yeah, it's true.
And as you said, it helps us to realize how that we're all fallible, but we get this sense that we're receiving something greater, much greater than ourselves, and all of a sudden we have this very valuable thing, and it feels great extending it and using it and applying it. How they receive it, it's not, a lot of times it's not even on our radar because we're just so sure of what we're giving. It's a game changer
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
And then the other person has to receive it. And some people are so wound up that they can't receive it. I feel so guilty that I did that. I feel so awful that I did that. So I've seen that part. And then I've seen the change. Not the change of life, but it is the change of life. I've seen a person feel very guilty and very horrible and very bad about what they did to their partner, and their partner is struggling, and then this happens, and they are able to forgive themselves, and they are able to all of a sudden have the grace to see their partner through whatever they have to see him through, instead of feeling guilty, feeling bad, feeling worthless, feeling all those bad things for whatever they did. Instead, the Holy Spirit comes in and just adjusts them and remodels them. It is amazing. And it's happened in between. You know, they come in this way, and then they go out, and then they come back, and what did you do with the person that looks just like you that was here before? And it's the Holy Spirit. And it's amazing.
So inviting God's forgiveness in, say, I could hear it like this. Do I want to forgive them? I know I need to forgive them.
Yes.
It's hard to do, but I'm going to try to do it. And some people do forgiveness with begrudgingly, and they still hold resentment towards the person. So it's not really forgiveness.
It's as good as it's going to get.
It's as good as it's going to get. But what it did was left a bunch of scars in that process that whenever you cross over that bridge and you look and you're like, ah, and whenever you revisit that experience again, I know what happened last time. Last time I did this, this turned out bad. I remember I had to forgive you. You remember that? I had to forgive you? Oh my goodness, seriously? But when we invite God's forgiveness into that situation, look, I need to forgive them. I want to forgive them, but I need your grace to help me do that. And will you somehow make this a beautiful thing? So like, in other words, imploring the Lord to help us in an act of forgiveness towards our spouse will actually water both of us. Yeah. We'll both be watered in that process. And I think that's a key thing in building and establishing our relationship with our spouses so that our life begins to go better for ourselves. It's that age-old thing, the grass will be green on the other side of the fence, and my neighbor's fence. Oh, that person over there looks better. Let me go water that. Maybe I can then have a better life with that person. But the reality is the water is only green where we take the hose and stick it. So if we put the hose right at our own feet, the feet of our spouses, and we water it, it'll be green grass. And if we pick the weeds out, right, the dandelion seeds, if we pick the weeds out, it's actually going to be continually really lush grass that even our children will enjoy to play in. And then our grandkids eventually will enjoy to play in it as well, because we both have done the work of watering, which is forgiving, it's loving, it's actively trying to engage in good, clear communication where we shut our mouths and open our ears.
That could be tough.
It's very, very hard because we're very smart people, James, aren't we? Don't we have things we can teach our wives?
But you also have to include your heart.
And open our hearts up.
So
the hard-heartedness.
You were saying earlier about what are the signs, and I brought out about the spiral notebook, and it is true. We are human, and typically we need to exhaust our human capabilities, which means we need to try to forgive. We need to, and when we forgive and when we talk it through, we're going to try and learn from it. And so I am not downplaying or putting that down at all. It is a necessary human thing.
So most communication levels, lines of communication will stop because of unforgiveness between the husband and wife. If they, because of offenses, they've been offended by one another, small way, big way, they stop communicating as a result of unforgiving. They won't forgive one another.
No.
Is that?
In my opinion, no.
Okay, what is it?
Two different patterns. Two different patterns that are brought in is the biggest thing that fouls communication. You have men and women, they communicate differently. Words can mean different things. Concepts can mean different things. One's emotional, one's fixed.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's that concept of we're wired differently.
And it is a true thing. It's not exclusive, it's not absolute.
Right.
But you said what blocks it, and so because we have those expectations and because we bring them in and they are not getting met, or the other person expects us to change for them or not, there's all these, and when kids come in, then you have not just the marriage expectations and how the things should be, but then you have how the parents should be and how the children should be raised. So to answer, in my opinion, your question is, it's the clash of the internal cultures, the internal expectations, what we bring in, and many times we're not even aware of what it is.
It's not talked about.
We were going to talk about family a little bit today, and so that is family. And then you have the spectators, which better known as children, and they are watching and they are seeing the battle of the titans, the parents, because parents are their gods starting out.
Sure, understood.
Because they
are your focal point. Yeah.
They are responsible for everything. They take care of everything. So they're watching these two people doing the same exact thing that these two people did when they were growing up. Really important concept is what I mentioned earlier, is we're learning these things at all these different ages. And in families are dynamic and stuff happens. You can lose a job, you can have an auto accident, someone can die, someone can do this, a house can, all these different things at different ages and different times. So you as a child and your children as children see you going through this and seeing independently how you each handle them. And they are recording all this.
Yeah, of course.
And so to answer your query about what causes the most shut off and shut down is trying to jam those two things together, and we call it communication. So people come in and say, we need to work on our communication. And I typically don't say much, and I just let people talk, and then I'll point out, y'all are communicating. You may not like the communications.
You may not like the words coming out of my mouth,
you
but
may not like the style, but you have been communicating. So what about we just get the communication healthier, and we just look at what is getting in the way, and we go to definitions.
That's good.
So the definitions, when you're growing up and when you're learning, you are learning definitions of things. And if you think back to any given word that you learned, when it is said, your brain is an amazing computer. It's going to flash and going to go back through all that RAM, and it's going to say, oh, this is the definition I originally found, and here's what's been added,
it's redefining.
and added and added and added, and here's what I have today.
Yeah.
Or we just take it straight from when we were 10-year-old, and we say, nothing's changing this because I learned that, and this was bad. These were horrible situations, and I will never forget. It's still true today. And we forget that was how a 10-year-old saw it. That was a 6-year-old saw it. That was a 7-year-old's interpretation, a 14-year-old's interpretation of this adult thing.
Yeah, wow. That's impressive.
What causes those clashes? A myriad of things. But the one thing is, it would be like, well, why get married? Why do all this then? Because it is the grandest adventure we have. Relationships are the grandest adventure we have. And because people go and they go on adventures, but they always want someone to come with them.
Of course.
They want to share, which means relationship.
Is there secret sauce?
Secret sauce.
Is there secret sauce to having a long-lasting marriage? That's, I mean, you and Susan have been married for nearly 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been a business owner, doing your own thing, self-employed for how many of those years?
30, 35, somewhere around there.
You've raised children, you have grandchildren. And so what would you say the secret sauce has been for you guys? Not that it's been perfect. I'm sure it's had its challenges and everything else.
So funny. When you said secret sauce, remember, I'm old. So when the different
You're mature, James. You're not old. You're mature.
Yes, I'm mature. When fast food places started, advertising secret sauce, that's what my mind went to. And then I'm
talking MSG sauce, secret sauce. Makes me want to keep coming back.
So true. Humbleness.
Well, isn't that a good word? Humbleness is a great word. What keeps us wanting to keep coming back to our partner? What is it that makes us want to keep coming back? The secret sauce to our relationship.
Promise.
In what way? Can you elaborate?
We somehow remember when we first saw them. We somehow remember what it was like during those magic times, and they are embedded
in our minds.
In our child.
Yeah. And our emotional state.
We could just get back to those. Now you have me on a whole other thing. I get couples to think of those times and bring those forward so that they can start updating them. But the secret sauce would be the promise. the bonding that was there originally, and the promise of we can have our version of that today, which would be so much better. The promise that our children will see that it's possible to have a lifelong partner, that it's possible to go through all these different things and give them choices.
Yeah.
Because their life is going to be their life. It's going to
their
have
canvas.
its
It's a canvas.
set of
Yeah.
things. But by staying, by working things through, our heart develops and swells and gets better. Our last breath will be job well done.
That's a good
Job well
That's
done.
a good vision. That's a very good vision for us. You know, one of the things that Megan and I, we did this year, we took a big trip, and I've always had a desire to go to Italy. I wanted to go back to where my grandparents came, my great-grandparents came from in Sicily. And I love history. I love family history. Family is very, very important to me. And I've always wanted to go back, and Meg's like, let's do it. And she booked the tickets. She booked the stay. She did everything. Our kids, our older girls, watched the little kids for us.
That's family.
That was family. We hadn't taken a trip where we were gone for over a week, just us, ever. We've been together 24 years.
It's a lot.
That's a big deal.
That's
And we've done 3-night, 4-night. We've done. We didn't leave our kids with people. We've always had our kids with us. You know, we've always cared for our children. We'd leave them for maybe a night or two, maybe with a sister or something. But you know, mainly it was. And so we took this trip, and it was kind of like a discovery trip. We went back to my roots, where my great grandmother came from, my great grandfather came from in Sicily. And it was an amazing trip. I let Meg book out wherever we were going. She kind of mapped it out, and I just drove. And we flew into Rome, and then we flew directly to Palermo. And then from Palermo, we went to Trapani, and we stayed in Trapani. And then from Trapani, we went all the way up to Calamafini, which is where my great-grandparents met and were married. And then he moved, my grandfather, Giuseppe Maddaloni, moved to Brooklyn with my grandmother, Josephina. And it was just like walking the streets and experiencing it was so powerful. There's no other person I would have wanted to rather experience that with was than with Megan. And we had that together. And we drove from the tip of Sicily all the way up back to Rome together, staying at different places, and Pompeii and Naples. And we went to the town of Maddaloni, and in like 8 days we stayed in more places. It was awesome. And we experienced that together. And we didn't fight one time. I think it was pretty amazing. Kids were like, "How was the trip?" First, we didn't fight at all. Mom's like, "Yeah, I remembered how much I love your daddy. This was great. This was great." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was fantastic." And it was just like those moments of connectedness and experiencing things together. It reminded me of when she and I were newlyweds, and we were young, and while we were engaged, and we would take these trips, and we would just go do these little adventures together. I was like, oh, this is who I fell in love with. Someone who's willing to have the adventures with me. Let's go do it. You know, let's go have some fun. Let's go explore stuff. And that, for Megan and I can say for me and for Meg, was a fantastic experience that may it not be another 20 years, but that was just really, really healthy. And it was good it watered us. It watered our relationship. So when you had said, you know, having someone that we can experience life with, the greatest experience is marriage and having that commitment of someone. It's just really, you can't exchange it. You can't exchange it. You can't and you can't flippantly do that with other people. I mean, you can go on trips with other people, sure, but that one person, your lifelong partner, is so powerful.
History. So I really want to know, I want to ask, at what point in this trip did the kid in you, the little boy in you, come out and you just want to hold her hand? And you're just like, This
Oh
is
yeah,
great.
I think it was Dave. I think it was we were in. I think when we finally got into from Rome, we got to Sicily, because it's just an hour and a half flight, and we got into Sicily, and I was like, oh, here it is. Let's go walking. And we walked up and down the city streets, and these cities are 500, 600, 700 years old, 100 years old. They're old.
Yeah.
It's the old world because it hasn't changed. It's so powerful. 1700, no, it's still the same way. It was pretty amazing.
That would be very amazing.
It was, man, imagining, hey, and her family is also from Sicily. We didn't go to their family town because we didn't have that information of where it was, but so it was like very like, oh, our relatives would have been in these areas.
Yeah.
Like this is where they would have gone to the sea, or this is where they would have gone to the churches. Like I was in the church that my great grandparents were married in from the 1600s. I'm like, what? like that church has been there that long. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Time machine.
It was a time machine. And to experience that together was just really, really awesome. So I appreciate you sharing on the communication aspect of our marriages and our very important relationships. Because I think that if counseling is needed, I think a lot of guys don't think they need it, but they're shooting themselves in the foot. And I think it's wise for them, like myself, I take my own advice, to engage with a counselor and humble themselves, say, hey, what do you think, or what areas of my life do you think I could, improve? Because I want to be an awesome dad.
Yeah.
I want to be a great husband that my wife adores and really respects, right? Not because of all the stuff I do, but because just of who I am.
Yep.
Of who I am. It's not what I accomplish, just who I am. And she obviously married you because she loved you for who you are, not for what you do, right? And so getting back to that place, how do I get back to that place where we just love each other for who we are, for who they are, who I am? And I think that sometimes is needed with a third party to come in, and that doesn't mean your marriage is in trouble and doesn't mean anything like that, but it just means that you're humble enough to put yourself in that situation, and vulnerable enough to get some tools that they need.
Just for people to think about, men and women. You were saying, well, I asked you the question, when did the kid come out?
Yeah.
And earlier in our conversation was what are some of the signs? When the child in you doesn't feel safe to come out with your partner, it's a warning sign. It's a big warning sign.
Does that mean we need to jump ship?
No. Trust that you chose well the first time, but that you have to grind up and use as fertilizer the things that you've lived through already. But also, for men, our greatest challenge is how to be a boy and a man and a husband
at the same time,
and a father. Yes, it is. And women have to do their same version, but we were just talking about men.
Yeah.
And so if you sit down with somebody, that's an opportunity. If you just let yourself be who you are, it is an opportunity, especially it has to be somebody that has experienced that, understands it. They don't have to be twice your age, or they can even be young, as long as they have an understanding of how those things work.
Yeah.
And that is that the adult man takes care of the boy. You know that you reinterpret things, but you also know you're here for a purpose and a reason, and you pick this person, and you're going to do just what you and your wife did. You're going to let the kid come out and adventure anew.
I love that. Thank you for being here, James.
It's been fun again.
It is fun. I think we should continue meeting and sharing, because there's a lot that can come out where faith, family, and business all kind of collide.
Amen.
And without having good counselors around us, we can perish for lack of knowledge.
and not be our best self.
And not be our best self. Agreed.
Not have our best life.
Yeah, so true. So, hey guys, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate you so much. If you liked what you heard, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Also, hit us in the comments down below. If you've got a question for James Pfeiffer, please comment down below, and we'll do our best to get back with you. But I encourage you to invest in your marriage, invest in your family, just as much as you invest in your business. So we want to see all areas of our life prosper, and we can do that as we add the Holy Spirit to our lives and listen to the counselor. We love you all. God bless you. We'll see you next time.